Ubi Chen, the father of Itay, is still in the hands of Hamas. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you for having me.
What is your response to Hamas's announcement that the release of Israeli hostages will be postponed due to Israeli violations of the ceasefire?
Yeah, of course, this puts us on a very difficult place. We have been advocating inside of the White House and to the president that we would like to see the last hostage come out with a date defining when that will happen. We feel the statement of the president is a positive, where he understands how fragile this current framework is, and it needs to be expedited. And the way to get to the last hostage is by expediting the negotiations and getting to the end game that everybody understands what it is, which is the end of the war between Hamas and Israel, getting the hostages out, and then all the alternatives would be open.
But President Trump last night suggested that Israel would threaten Hamas if all hostages won't be released by noon Saturday, all hell will break out.
Yes, that's the type of language that we've been missing from the previous administration. I think that the majority of the families welcome the policy of President Trump, as well as Mr. Steve Witkoff, that enabled us to get to this framework of seeing hostages coming out. But we need to get to the end game, and that means the last hostage. And what we feel is that Israel, has done a lot. It has released a number of the assets that it had in its possession, leaving Gaza. But we also understand that to get to the last hostage, there aren't that many cards left. And that means that it is better today to expedite the negotiations also for Israel, to get the last hostage, which is an obligation that this government has as being responsible for what happened on October 7th, and needing to get to a place that we, the families, could somehow begin our next sad chapter of our lives.
As a U.S. citizen, you've met with U.S. President Donald Trump. Do you trust his commitment to the release of our hostages?
Yeah, I'm going to say something that I think the majority of the families would agree with me, which is a bit difficult to say, but I have to say it. If I needed to put my trust in one person, only one person, I would put it in the hands of the President of the United States, which is difficult to say because I'm also a citizen of the State of Israel. But I've looked into his eyes. I've talked to his team. I know that they put this at the highest priority of his team after speaking to the National Security Advisor team, as well as to the Department Secretary of State and others. And he's doing it not because of some sort of political calculus. He's doing it because it is the right thing to do. And I would hope that the Prime Minister of Israel also understands that this is the right thing to do, that should supersede any other war objective, including the dismantling of Hamas. First and foremost comes the release of the hostages.
But how does this commitment is aligned with his Gaza plan?
I'm a simple dad. I don't want to get into the politics. I think that by coupling the day after with the release of the hostages is not a good strategy. I think that the release of the hostages is something that is far different than any type of political calculus. And speaking about what happens between Israel and the people in Gaza, we are victims. The State of Israel failed me, my family, and many other families by allowing the abduction of over 240 of its citizens, as well as my son that was on the border as an IDF soldier protecting civilians, and he was taken hostage. And the State of Israel has an obligation, a legal, moral obligation to get my son back. And I don't care at all what it means and what it takes.
Yeah, despite of this obligation, when you hear ministers like Smotrich and Strzok express their objections to phase 2 of the hostage agreement, do you fear it will influence Netanyahu's decision-making?
I think that the president has a very direct line to the prime minister. I think he views those types of ministers as a nuisance. He doesn't pay that much attention to Smotrich or to Struk or Ben-Gvir. And this is, I'm saying from fact, from being inside of the White House. And I, again, commend the president, as in the past, when he needed to be at critical decision points, his response from time to time is very simple. He does things because it is the right thing to do. And that is the same case here. He puts at the highest priority the hostages. And I hope to believe that the Prime Minister understands his responsibility, first and foremost, before political decisions, before thinking about what Smotrich says or doesn't say, that he has an obligation to the people of Israel. And 80% of the people of Israel want to see the last hostage out, and they want to see it as soon as possible.
Ubi Chen, thank you.
Thank you for having me.